Have you ever wondered what it's like to go to space or even travel to another planet? What it looks like on the surface of Mars? Well, with advancing technologies, this may soon become reality. Some assurances that need to be had before any of this takes place is definitely safety. That's a big one. Getting to another planet is a feat on its own, but there are several things that go into the planning of it, the journey there, what happens when you get there, and then the return trip as well. So testing and effectiveness are another platform that needs to be very, very well handled prior to leaving. Then again, fuels and resupply are something that needs to be taken into account as well. And do we stop there at Mars, or do we go further into deep space exploration? And then once we have actually successfully gotten into space and traveled to this next planet, how are humans going to react on a foreign planet? So with that safety aspect, developing technologies as recently as last week have put people into space. Virgin Galactic has launched 2 pilots successfully into space, and this is privatized flight. So space tourism is going to be a very real thing. The company has noted selling tickets starting at $250,000. While this may seem like a lot of money right now, it is a substantial amount of money, $250,000. But as time goes on, technology is going to improve. And the race for space is definitely on. So with Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, Boeing, and other private companies, as well as government companies like NASA, who recently has been funded to get us into orbit and onto Mars by 2033. So it's a big deal. It's happening. And of course, there's been some trials and tribulations. Virgin Galactic has not made it into space without some significant setbacks and risks, But this last flight, they were essentially dropped out of orbit. The rocket took off, and they reached the edge of the atmosphere and entered space. So it's pretty outstanding. But with this is testing and effectiveness. So ensuring that you're able to test something and put it through the longevity, the flight, that it's going to need to have while it's up there, going through space, and the debris that it can't encounter. So with this, there is essentially an asteroid belt around Earth that actually isn't made of asteroids. It's made of debris, things like satellites that collide with another, or China just last year was known for destroying their satellites that are in Earth's orbit. So this creates a debris field that really has no way of being cleaned up right now. So launching a rocket into that type of atmosphere can essentially be devastating. The debris can enter the fuselage and cause all kinds of problems. Companies need to keep that in mind. And this isn't just in Earth's atmosphere. This is beyond, past the moon, and debris obviously floats in space. So beyond the safety of, just the physical aspect, also the mental aspect goes into it as well. So being prolonged exposure, isolated, feeling away, because the journey does take about 9 months to get there. So the safety, not only physically but mentally, needs to be there as well. Then beyond that, fueling and resupply is a big deal. So yes, of course, we could get there with the fuels, get us into orbit, and then use the trajectories and different vectors to get us there. But then once we land, is there going to be enough fuel to take back off and to get us back home? So these are the things that have been thrown around, and ideas have been tossed out there to see, is there ways that we can mitigate this and resupply? So SpaceX has been successful in launching rockets into space, docking with the space station, and then landing them successfully back on Earth, resupplying and relaunching. So the plan is, right now with NASA, has projected to get us to Mars by 2033, as I mentioned, but they're going to do it in 5 phases. And right now, one of those phases has the testing essentially to launch us into the moon's orbit, revolve around the moon, resupply there, and then send those shuttles back down to Earth, resupply, go back to the space station, and take off from there. But also, you know, you want to ensure that not only do you have enough fuel, but you also have enough food and nourishment. You know, so they're looking at ways to preserve food, you know, for prolonged periods of time, because 9 months isn't, you know, very long. But then once you get to Mars, you're not going to stay for, you know, just a couple weeks. The plan is to, once people get there, 18 months, a minimum of 18 months. So 9 months, 18 months, and a 9-month return trip, you know, that's almost 4 years. So you really got to look at your food supply and understand what can be done to prolong that. And then beyond space, or beyond Mars, what lies beyond Mars. So once we get to Mars, the pivotal exploration beyond that, these exploration have been done by such probes as Cassini that was in space, and actually it was in space for 20 years and really got a good detail of Saturn and its rings. And then in July of last year was sunk down into the planet to see the atmosphere, and essentially lost contact, so it was destroyed. But it provided vital information to scientists, and NASA researchers are able to use that and compile it to get us further into space, and you know, what type of atmospheres exist and what materials are out there. And you know, there's been talks as far as mining these different locations and successfully landing on asteroids to mine them. Now, landing on an asteroid, while it seems very far-fetched, has already been done. Okay, now mining the materials on the asteroid is a little not far-fetched, but further off than today. So it is in the works. It is going to happen. So the fossil fuels are depleting here on Earth, and scientists are looking at ways to recycle those or replenish those, and asteroids have been on the table. So this isn't saying that can't happen. So then we have to talk about humans on the red planet and what that will actually look like. What's the chain of events when we get there? You know, what's going on? So right now, the InSight rover is NASA's rover that landed on Mars successfully just recently, and it's doing seismic activity to see what locations, you know, fault data and everything else. It's essentially studying the core of Mars, the crust, the mantle, all that, the interior composition, to map out the best locations for the humans to lay claim to and begin to colonize. So this is a critical moment right now. The data that's being compiled by this InSight rover being sent back is vital to how we set up shop on Mars, and what we can actually expect, and as far as people, you know, sustainability and that type of thing. So in conclusion, you know, this is very tangible reality. 2033 is not too far off. Within the next 15 years, the plan is to be on Mars. While space tourism is a real thing right now, and it's going to happen within the next few years, you know, there's certain assurances that we need, and that's safety, the testing and effectiveness of it, the fuels and resupply, and how that's going to happen. We need detailed plans of how that's going to happen. We need reassurances prior to us going to another planet, how we're going to get there, how we're going to maintain, and how we're going to get back. And then additionally, deep space exploration beyond the planet itself, and further exploration, because Mars isn't just the last stop. This is only a stepping stone. But then once we get to Mars, humans on the red planet, how we're going to react, and how we're going to continue to you know, extend our hand beyond just this solar system.